Story 1. In the heart of a quaint New England town nestled among ancient forests and rolling hills, stood the centuries-old St. Agnes Church. Its towering bell tower cast eerie shadows on the cobblestone streets below. For years, the townsfolk had whispered of strange occurrences within the church's hallowed walls. Some claimed to hear ghostly whispers, while others swore they saw eerie apparitions through the stained glass windows. But nothing could have prepared them for what was about to unfold. It began on a chilly autumn night when Father Samuel, the kind-hearted priest who had served St. Agnes for decades, decided to investigate the rumors himself. Armed with only a lantern and his unwavering faith, he climbed the narrow stone steps leading to the bell tower. He had heard tales of a cursed bell that rang at the stroke of midnight, even when no one touched it. As Father Samuel reached the top of the bell tower, he felt a chilling presence. The lantern flickered, casting eerie shadows on the ancient wooden beams. The bell, silent for years, suddenly began to sway ominously. Father Samuel's heart raced as he watched it. The clapper struck the bell, sending a deafening toll echoing through the night. The townsfolk awoke to the terrifying sound of the bell ringing incessantly, even though no one had touched it. Panic spread like wildfire, and soon, a crowd had gathered outside the church. Father Samuel descended from the bell tower, pale and trembling. He could offer no explanation for the supernatural events he had witnessed. The townsfolk, gripped by fear and superstition, turned to the church for answers. Whispers of witchcraft and demonic possession swept through the community like a deadly plague. It wasn't long before a group of zealous townsfolk, led by the fiery preacher Ezekiel, declared that the church itself was cursed. They demanded that it be cleansed of evil, no matter the cost. Ezekiel's followers began to gather in fervent prayer sessions within the church, hoping to exorcise the supposed demons that plagued it. The once tranquil church transformed into a battleground of hysteria and fanaticism. They accused innocent townsfolk of being witches and warlocks, pointing fingers at anyone who dared to question their fervor. Among those falsely accused was Sarah, a gentle healer known for her knowledge of herbs and remedies. She had always been a source of comfort and aid to the sick and suffering, but as the accusations intensified, she found herself branded as a witch. Her eyes, once filled with kindness, now bore the weight of despair. The witch hysteria reached its peak when a mock trial was held within the church's sacred halls. Ezekiel presided over the kangaroo court, and the accused, including Sarah, were subjected to cruel and unusual punishments to force confessions. The crowd watched in rapt fascination as the innocent suffered, convinced that they were witnessing the eradication of evil. As Sarah stood before the frenzied mob, her hands bound, she maintained her innocence. The evidence against her was flimsy at best, based on mere rumors and superstitions. But reason had been abandoned, and fear had taken its place. It seemed the once pious church had become a breeding ground for madness. As the trial continued, Father Samuel, guilt-ridden over the chaos he had inadvertently unleashed, sought the guidance of a reclusive scholar who lived on the outskirts of town. This scholar, known as Nathaniel, had devoted his life to the study of the supernatural. He revealed that the bell itself was a relic from a time when the church had dabbled in dark rituals to gain power. Nathaniel explained that the bell had become a conduit for malevolent forces, its tolling fueling the hysteria within the church. To cleanse the church of this darkness, they needed to silence the bell forever. Armed with this knowledge, Father Samuel returned to the church, determined to end the madness. The church was in chaos, with false confessions and wild accusations flying in every direction. As Father Samuel approached the bell tower, he found Ezekiel leading a frenzied group in a final attempt to purge the church of evil. The bell rang ominously, its sound resonating with the hysteria within the church. In a climactic confrontation, Father Samuel and Ezekiel faced off, their beliefs and convictions clashing. Nathaniel arrived, armed with a powerful incantation to seal the malevolent forces within the bell. But the malevolence fought back, manifesting as a terrifying entity with a desire to possess the souls of all present. With their very lives at stake, Father Samuel, Nathaniel, and Ezekiel joined forces to perform the exorcism. The battle between good and evil raged, as the malevolent entity fought to maintain its grip on the church and its inhabitants. The bell rang louder and more violently, threatening to consume them all. In a desperate act of self-sacrifice, Father Samuel climbed the bell tower one last time, armed with the incantation and his unwavering faith. As he recited the words, the bell's tolling grew more frenzied, but the entity weakened. In a blinding burst of light, the entity was banished, and the bell fell silent for the first time in centuries. With the malevolent force vanquished, the church fell into a profound silence. The townsfolk, exhausted and shaken, began to regain their senses. Ezekiel, humbled by the events that had transpired, renounced his fanatical ways, seeking forgiveness from those he had wronged. Sarah, who had faced unspeakable torment, was exonerated, and the townsfolk came to recognize her true nature as a healer and a source of kindness. The church, once a place of terror, became a symbol of redemption and reconciliation. In the end, the townsfolk learned that the true evil had not resided within the church, but in the darkness that can consume the hearts of even the most devout. The bell tower, once a source of dread, now stood as a reminder of the enduring power of faith and the capacity for redemption in the face of hysteria and madness. Story 2. In the remote town of Blackwood, nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, lay the eerie and desolate St. Michael's Church. Abandoned for generations, its once grand steeple now leaned ominously over the darkened streets. The townsfolk avoided it like a plague, for it was said that the church was cursed, a repository of unspeakable horrors. One gloomy autumn evening, a stranger arrived in Blackwood. His name was David Landon, a weary traveler seeking refuge from the relentless rain. With no place else to turn, he found himself standing at the doors of St. Michael's Church. The air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and forgotten prayers. As David entered the forsaken sanctuary, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The church's pews were coated in dust, the once vibrant stained glass windows now faded and cracked. He decided to spend the night there, believing the rumors of curses and hauntings to be mere superstitions. As night fell, a chilling wind swept through the church, extinguishing the solitary candle David had lit. In the darkness, he heard a faint, ethereal melody, a haunting choir of voices rising from the shadows. Goosebumps prickled his skin as he strained to see who or what could be singing. The voices grew louder, resonating with a mournful, otherworldly beauty. David, his curiosity overcoming his fear, followed the haunting melody to the church's grand organ. It played itself, its keys depressing and releasing with ghostly precision. The sound was both enchanting and deeply unsettling. David's heart raced as he beheld a spectral congregation filling the pews. Transparent figures in tattered clothing, their faces etched with sorrow and despair, sang the melancholic hymn. He watched in a trance as their mournful eyes locked onto his, pleading for salvation. Terror gripped David as the congregation moved towards him, their spectral hands reaching out. He fled toward the church's entrance, desperate to escape the nightmarish scene. But the door slammed shut with a deafening boom, trapping him inside. As David turned to face the congregation of shadows, he realized the horrifying truth. They were the souls of those who had sought refuge in St. Michael's Church over the centuries, their eternal torment bound to the forsaken place. Their mournful hymn continued, louder and more desperate as they closed in on him. Desperation gave way to madness as David's mind unraveled. He screamed, the sound echoing through the church's cavernous interior, blending with the eerie choir. The spectral hands reached for him, their touch like ice against his flesh. The haunting melody reached its crescendo, a cacophony of despair that threatened to shatter David's sanity. In his final moments of terror, he fell to the floor, his screams joining the chorus of anguish that enveloped him. When dawn broke over Blackwood, the rain had ceased, and the church doors stood open once more. But David Landon was gone, his fate sealed within the haunted walls of St. Michael's. The cursed church had claimed another victim, its dreadful secret forever concealed within its decaying, forsaken walls. And so St. Michael's Church remained a sinister sentinel in the silent town of Blackwood, a place where the echoes of the damned sang their eternal lament, a terrible ending to the story of a traveler who sought refuge and found only a nightmarish choir of lost souls. Story 3. In the remote hamlet of Ravenwood, nestled deep within the mist-shrouded woods, there stood an ancient chapel known as St. Seraphina's. For centuries, It had watched over the quiet village, its spire reaching for the heavens. But Ravenwood was a place touched by darkness, and the townspeople seldom ventured near the chapel, for they believed it was cursed. The legend spoke of a curse that had befallen St. Seraphina's chapel long ago. It was said that the very ground upon which it was built was tainted by a malevolent force. People who entered the chapel at night were rumored to have gone mad or disappeared, their fates forever intertwined with the sinister history of the place. One chilly autumn evening, a stranger named Eliza arrived in Ravenwood. She was an outsider, an artist seeking solitude and inspiration for her work. Drawn by the melancholic beauty of the chapel's crumbling facade, she decided to make it her temporary home, unaware of the dark history that clung to St. Seraphina's. As the night descended upon the hamlet, Eliza found herself captivated by the eerie charm of the chapel. Moonlight streamed through the cracked stained glass windows, casting ghostly patterns upon the dusty pews. She decided to spend the night, eager to capture the chapel's haunting beauty on her canvas. As Eliza settled into her makeshift studio, a haunting melody filled the chapel. It was a mournful tune, played by an unseen hand on the chapel's ancient organ. The music was ethereal, both enchanting and unsettling, drawing her deeper into its spell. Unable to resist the allure of the music, Eliza followed the sound to the organ, its keys moving as if guided by invisible fingers. As she approached, the music grew louder, the notes echoing through the chapel like a siren's call. Eliza's fascination with the music was undeniable. Night after night, she returned to the chapel, captivated by the mysterious organist. The haunting melodies became her obsession, and she longed to meet the musician behind the ethereal music. One moonless night, as the music swelled to a crescendo, Eliza saw a shadowy figure seated at the organ, a specter with hollow eyes that bore into her soul. The figure extended a bony hand, beckoning her to join in a midnight covenant. Eliza, enraptured by the music and the phantom organist, reached out and placed her hand in the spectral grasp. In that moment, she made a terrible bargain, an exchange of her mortal soul for the gift of eternal creativity and artistic genius. The covenant was sealed, and the chapel's malevolent force claimed her as its own. Eliza's artistry blossomed with newfound brilliance, but it came at a dreadful cost. Her once vibrant spirit withered away, leaving her a mere vessel for the malevolent force that now controlled her. She painted with a feverish intensity, creating masterpieces that captured the darkness of the chapel and the anguish of her own soul. As Eliza's work gained acclaim in the art world, the true horror of her transformation remained hidden. Her paintings, hailed as masterpieces, were imbued with the malevolent energy of the chapel, leaving those who viewed them unsettled and haunted. The art world was enthralled by her dark genius, unaware of the terrible price she had paid. As years passed, Eliza's physical form deteriorated, a mere shell of the vibrant artist she once was. She became a recluse, spending her days and nights in the chapel, painting feverishly in a trance-like state. The haunting melodies never ceased, their eerie echo filling the hamlet of Ravenwood. When Eliza's lifeless body was discovered in the chapel, her paintings remained as a chilling testament to her unholy covenant. Her soul, forever bound to the malevolent force that had ensnared her, continued to haunt St. Seraphina's chapel, its dark history perpetuated for eternity. And so, the chapel in the quiet hamlet of Ravenwood stood as a place of artistic genius and unspeakable horror, where one woman's pursuit of creative brilliance led to a terrible ending, a pact with a malevolent force that consumed her soul and left a haunting legacy for generations to come.